Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 10 of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called What They Become. Well guys, are you happy campers right now? Yes, once again, Joss Whedon has brought the pain. The internet is infuriated, and I am, of course, drinking in their suffering with a glee that I cannot even begin to describe. Oh, the Schadenfreude. It's a wonderful thing. It's a magical thing. But yeah. But my fondness for laughing at the emotional outbursts of teenage girls on Tumblr aside, let's start talking about this episode. So, here it is. No doubt about it, we're talking Inhumans. And basically, at this point, there's no doubt about it that Skye is intended to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe's counterpart to the character of Daisy Johnson. And that her dad, who mentions that his name is Cal, is intended to be their version of the bad guy called Mr. Hyde. So basically, in the comics, Mr. Hyde is a villain who, like his name implies, developed this crazy formula that made him super strong, and also he's really evil. As I understand it, he started off as kind of a daredevil villain, but he's also fought Thor and the Hulk, and just kind of one of those guys they go to whenever they need a guy who's really strong to throw down with the heroes. And Daisy Johnson is his daughter. In the comics, basically, Mr. Hyde fathered a daughter with a prostitute. She ended up being given up for adoption, and she gained earthquake, the ability to kind of cause seismic shocks, earthquakes, from his genes. Here, they're just sort of going with a different version where she is an Inhuman. We do confirm that the Chinese lady we saw in the other episode was Skye's mom, so some of that stuff about where they found her body that I was talking about, like, I was confused. I thought that her dad had found her body in China. Okay, so yeah, okay, that was what it seemed like, but again, there's just the way that story was presented was a little confusing to me. It also does show that once again, the Hydra agents are really dumb. They could have spared themselves quite a bit of misery if they just bothered to throw some dirt on Skye's mom's body. I mean, this is part of it. Big part of the story happens because the villains are just too lazy to make even the most token effort to clean up their misdeeds. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But getting back to Skye and all, we do get a confirmation that Skye herself, as a lot of people had theorized by what had been presented in the show before, is half Chinese. Now, in real life, Chloe Bennett, who plays Skye, is in fact also half Chinese and half Jewish. Just one of those people that's of mixed race, and it's kind of a little bit hard to tell. Whether or not that was a deliberate choice, or was it something they planned, was it a deliberate choice on part of the writers, given the actress's heritage? Who knows? But it really wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of the direction they went with. And of course, the idea of the Inhumans city of Adelon, originally in the comics being located in the Himalayas, and thus fairly close to China, probably just a nice coincidence. So let's see. Before we kind of get really into that, and unfortunately what happens with Trip, let's kind of talk a little bit about some of the other details of this episode. One, we get to find out that Hunter has picked up that Bobby is hiding stuff from the team. You know, he kind of confronts her over that whole thumb drive thing, and sort of says to her, basically, you know, I want to trust you. And this is, of course, touching back onto that conversation that she'd had with Mac earlier about something that she was keeping from Coulson. So Hunter, of course, doesn't know what it is, but he knows that she's hiding something. But it looks like he's willing to trust her that she's doing something good. Also, I want to talk a little bit about Agent 33. Now, the thing to remember about her is that she was personally loyal to Whitehall. After Coulson kills him, she literally is adrift and aimless, And that makes her a perfect target for Ward, who just is like, "Hey, why don't you come with me, and we'll figure something out for you." So again, this is really nice in that it makes Ward even more dangerous. I mean, now he's got somebody who's basically as dangerous as May. I mean, remember, Agent 33 gave May a hell of a fight. So now he's got somebody like that at his side. I actually saw somebody online tossing out the idea that she might become the cinematic universe's version of Madame Mosque. I don't think that's going to happen, but I have to admit that would be pretty cool. And Madame Mosque is the sort of character, and that's just not mosque is like where Muslims worship, but like just a really just a fancy way of pronouncing mask, or like it'd be a French or Italian way, or I think that's how they spell it. It's like MASQUE. So yeah, this is cool because again, it sort of ups the ante with Ward. He's even more dangerous now. It'd be kind of cool if Ward even sort of assembled his own sort of evil or morally questionable version of agents who answer to him and are pursuing his agenda. Whatever that might be. I mean, sort of an Agents of Ward. That would be pretty awesome. And let's see. Not really a huge amount to say about Whitehall. I just love the fact that just Coulson just flat out shot him in the back. Again, it just sort of shows that Coulson is seasoned enough that if he sees an opportunity, he'll take it. But this also kind of presents a contrast because when Skye has the opportunity to kill Ward, she just can't bring herself to do it. And again, this just shows that yes, Skye's come a long way, but killing somebody in cold blood, that's a little much. Of course, I think Skye has seen that as twisted and messed up as he is, I don't think that she sees that believes that there's really any good in Ward. I don't really think that she sees him as somebody who really can be redeemed or even deserves it. But I think it's kind of hit her that Ward probably is genuinely sorry for some of the things that he did. And that Ward is, I think it's just kind of a case of she realizes that Ward is sort of a victim of circumstance. And again, I don't think that buys Ward very much in Skye's book, but I think she at least realizes that the guy's not completely evil. He's just so mentally messed up that, yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that, again, let me be clear that I don't think Skye has any feelings for Ward. I don't think she believes that he's a good person. I think that she just sort of is willing to acknowledge to herself that, yeah, Ward is in some degree a victim of circumstances. And again, just the idea of killing somebody in cold blood, even somebody like Ward who's done all this stuff that really has messed with her life horribly. Skye's a good person. She just can't quite bring herself to do that. Of course, gunning down a known Nazi and murderer and guy who gets off on torture, not such a hard thing for Coulson. And actually, I think if Skye had the opportunity to kill Whitehall, she probably would have taken it, even if it had been shooting him in the back. It's just, Ward, she just had enough of an emotional connection to Ward that she just couldn't quite do it. I mean, well, I think we'll probably get to see exactly what's going on with them a little bit more, but I do have to admit, I really love this sort of very twisted relationship that she and Ward have. It makes for really great drama. Let's see. Nothing particular to say about what's going on with Fitz and Simmons this time around. It does sort of seem like there's still a little bit of tension there between those two. They're still trying to make this new dynamic between them work. Anyway, so let's just kind of get right into the big thing of this episode. And this is, of course, the transformation and Trip's death. Well, the transformation that we see here is fairly reminiscent of the comics. Now, in the comics, when this happens, or at least when the Inhumanity event, which was the most recent incarnation of us seeing the Terrigen crystals in action, what would happen is like a literal big old cocoon would form around people. They'd be in it for a couple hours, and then they would pop out. Here, they don't do that, obviously. They just sort of have that stone form around people. They're like that for a minute, and then they come out. And I think this is one just part of the budgetary reasons, and the whole a cocoon appears out of nowhere is a little much to sort of ask out of live action. Doing it this way, it sort of makes you think just for a moment like, oh my god, are they dying like those other people? And then we see them. We see Skye sort of pop out. We even get to see a little bit of Raina, and it looks like she's gotten these yellow eyes, and there's quills coming out of her, and I think we get to see a brief bit of her hand where it looks like she's got a claw, so it looks like she's become some sort of animalistic, combat-oriented sort of person, which probably not what a pretty lady like Raina was hoping for, but who knows? Maybe she's a potential recruit for the future Agents of Ward. Oh man, the more I say that, the more I really want to see that. Ooh, yeah, Ward is evil Coulson. That would be awesome. Well, okay, as morally ambiguous Coulson. Yeah, whatever. And I do have to say that scene where Skye pops out of her cocoon, the music and just the way it's presented is really well shot. It's really well done. It's very atmospheric. It's very beautiful. And it's like Raina says, the thing gives life, but only to the worthy. And that transformation, under just about any other circumstances, despite how it happened, would have been an enormous moment for Skye. A moment of change, of growth, and power. But this is a Joss Whedon show. You don't get pure 100% happiness ever. So here we have that moment. The moment that, one way or another, is going to define Skye's life for the rest of her life. And what should be this moment of glorious transformation is tempered by her having to watch her friend, her ally, die right in front of her. He literally falls to pieces. Skye has gained the power of the earth, while Trip has crumbled to dust. So right there, this thing that could have been a gift, how can Skye not have the first thing that she sees after gaining this power be her friend's death, and not look at this as a curse? Drama. Yes, feel the pain. Feel the pain. Joss Whedon commands you to feel the pain. Now, some people, obviously people were upset by Trip's death. And, I was sad to lose Trip too. He's a pretty cool guy. I was really looking forward to seeing more from his character here in Season 2. But I have to say, I was starting not to laugh at how many people I literally saw on Tumblr last night calling him my beautiful man. Have I mentioned that I have a hard time respecting very emotional people? Me. This is what I'm all about. But as sad as it was for Trip to go, if you stop and look at it, it makes sense that he was the one that got killed off. Okay, Coulson. This show exists because people like the character of Phil Coulson. They're not getting rid of him. May? Well, Ming-Na Wen, before was basically like the most well-known person on the show. I mean, the most well-known actress on this show, besides Clark Gregg. And she was actually fairly well-known before he got big, thanks to the Marvel movies. So again, they're not killing her. Plus, she's also Coulson's right hand. Bobby, well, her counterpart in the comics is an actual honest-to-God Avenger. They're not killing her off, especially as they only brought her in, like 6 episodes ago? Nuh-uh. We really wouldn't have had enough time to bond with Bobby for it to really count. And also, they just set up a thing with her and Mac last episode, having some kind of a secret from the team. And they touch upon it in this episode with Hunter realizing that she's up to something. So that sort of takes Bobby, Hunter, and Mac off the table for who they're going to kill. Obviously, they ain't killing Skye. So, and they're not going to kill Fitz and Simmons because, again, through the trouble of setting up this new relationship for them. Now, I admit, after everything is going through, that I would have thought that one of them would also probably be pretty, like somebody that you could conceivably put on the chopping block as well. But again, neither Fitz or Simmons are really actiony people, so for them to be one of the people that ended up in the chamber with Skye doesn't quite make sense. And again, they just finally got to a point where, all right, there's a new status quo between Fitz and Simmons. We're starting to see a little bit of how that works in this episode. And if they were to then go and kill one or the other, it's like, well, why did you bother to go through all that trouble of setting up that new status quo? So that just leaves Trip. And they haven't really done a whole lot with Trip here in Season 2. And, I think I've remarked on this before. So besides that, I mean, he's a cool guy. He's been helping out and all that. Apart from that, all that really Trip really had going on as a character was that he'd flirted with Simmons a little bit last season. And that's it. There really wasn't much going on with Trip. So, and there's also the fact that the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has gotten pretty large. So it's really not a surprise that they chose to kill somebody off, just to sort of trim things down a little bit. So it looks to me like, just logically in terms of storytelling, Trip was the one where the axe was going to fall. And yes, of course, him being one of the only minority characters on the show. There are 3. Now there's 2. Well, actually, no. Skye is now confirmed to be half Asian, biracial. So, yeah. But anyway, obviously, a lot of folks were kind of upset that the black guy died once again in the sci-fi show, and I won't lie, I gotta admit that went through my mind too. But there are some pretty logical storytelling reasons for why it was Trip, and here's the thing: whenever something like this happens to a character who's a minority, people get upset, and it's not entirely without good reason. I mean, we all know that minorities are really not represented in television as they should be in terms of numbers or the sort of characters that they're often given the chance to play. Now, thankfully, this does seem to be improving as time goes by, but there's still a long way to go. But that said, every time that we really, I think, don't do the idea of treating minority characters on television proper justice if we flip out and start screaming racism every time a character who is not a heterosexual white man dies on a TV show. And I've said to people online, like, okay, so if you feel this way, what exactly is your solution? Because the idea of only white heterosexual men being able to get killed off is obviously ridiculous. And never, not once, has anyone I have asked that question been able to give me a real answer. They usually just start calling me racist, sexist, homophobic, or something like that. I am asking, what is your solution to this question? Because I don't have a good solution to this, apart from, how about this idea? If a character is killed off on a TV show, it should be in a way and for a reason that enhances the drama of the show. That is, makes sense in terms of what is going on with their character, and makes us, the audience, feel some genuine sense of loss at the passing of this character. Well, people feeling lost at the passing of Trip, pretty obviously happened. Skye, she's going to be, like I said, this is going to be something that taints this moment for the rest of her life. Obviously, I think Simmons is probably going to have some sort of reaction to this, considering that she and Trip had a little bit of attraction going on to each other. And this is just going to be a blow to Team Coulson in general. And do keep in mind, Trip did die Trip was a real hero this episode. I mean, we did see him. He went out there. He disarmed those bombs that would have killed everybody in that underground complex. It's just that's not the moment where he died. If he had died taking out that last bomb, I think people would have been a lot more cool with things. What happened though was that he died like 5 minutes later. And I know I've seen some people saying like, well, he shot the crystal because it was going to go out and it was going to destroy the world. No. Remember, this was not that weapon that Hydra was trying to build. They wanted to turn that into a weapon that they could use to kill millions, maybe even billions of people. But they didn't know how to do it. That crystal was only meant to transform people with inhuman ancestry so that they gained their powers. Trip just shot something not knowing what it was, thinking that that might save everybody's life. That turned out to be a mistake because that's what caused that piece of the crystal to enter his body and killed him. So yeah, Trip died because he made a mistake. But it was a mistake he made while trying to save other people's lives. So in my book, and in all fairness, it's an understandable mistake. He had no idea what he was dealing with. And it's not because he was dumb or anything, it was just something that was completely beyond his understanding. So yeah, so I consider Trip to have died pretty nobly. It's just, but just unfortunately. Now, if he had just sort of stood there and done nothing, would he have survived that situation? I honestly don't know. If it was in the comics where the Terrigen crystals are more about a gas they produce, then I would have said no. But things apparently work a little bit differently here in TV land. So it's entirely possible that if he had just sort of hung back and not done anything, he might have survived. But Trip's not a guy who hangs back and doesn't do anything when he thinks that there's something he could possibly do to save someone's life. It didn't work out for him this time, but still, he had already saved the lives of everybody in the underground complex, and he died doing something that he thought might save Skye's life. Or more accurately to say, he died as a result of doing something that he thought might save Skye's life. So yeah, it's sad to see Trip go. And I know some people have said, well, hey, wait a minute, what if I heard that he was going to be making an appearance in Agents of Ultron? Well, from what I understand, B.J. Britt, who played Trip, was cited on the set of Agents of Ultron. But that could have just been him paying a visit, or they could have something for him, and he's like maybe appearing in a flashback or something. And also keep in mind, this is a Marvel show, and hey, you never know, they might find some way to bring Trip back. But I went and actually checked B.J. Britt's Twitter feed just to see kind of what his reaction to all of this was. And he was reacting and basically just sort of retweeting a lot of good wishes from his co-stars and other people, basically kind of saying like, yeah, I'm leaving the show. I'd also heard online somebody mention that he's been doing appearances on some show on BET, so if he was, say, being offered a more prominent role on a show on another network instead of being just a member of an ensemble cast, even though it's on ABC, as a career move, I can see that being something that he might do. You know, one thing we always have to keep in mind when characters do die on TV shows is that sometimes it's the idea of the writers, and sometimes the actors want to go off and do other things. Emily Kinney, for example, over on Walking Dead, has a music career. I haven't checked it out, but from what I've heard, she's actually quite good. So it's not unreasonable that her probably wanting to focus more on her music career and instead of her acting career might have been part of the decision that helped make recent events on Walking Dead come to pass. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap that up here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.